right. Stones of Strength podcast, episode 13. We are joined by Stonelifting phenom John. Lift stones, travel, repeat. Thank you so much for joining us.
Having me.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's start way back at the beginning. Like, where does your saga and relationship with stonelifting start?
As far as stone lifting goes, I started with Atlas stones back in, I want to say 2017 or 2018. That is when I was living in Florida and I discovered a strongman gym at the time, which was striking a gold mine for me. I was always into lifting awkward, heavy objects, not just stones. Obviously, that's my main thing now. But back in the day, I mean, you could have seen me lifting couches for fun, grabbing like dressers, anything, just because I like lifting everything.
If you had friends moving, you were offering up. Yeah, I'll be over in a minute. Yeah,
absolutely. Just get me some beers, record me doing it a few times, and we're golden. I drive my poor friend nuts when I would do that. And then I first got into lifting natural stones, and obviously there's a big difference between lifting the Atlas stones versus the natural stones, and you get to use tacky. And I think that definitely helped build a base, kind of like lifting weights in the gym would. But nothing ever helped me build that brute strength like lifting natural stones. And I first started doing that during COVID, I think. I was hiking at a place I lived at in New York at the time. I live in Illinois now. And my friend and I came across hundreds of stones underneath this bridge. And I was just like, oh my God. I've seen Stone Land before that. I watched Full Sturker. I watched the Basque documentary.
Mm-hmm.
When they came out 5 years ago. And I was into strongman then. And I thought it was so cool watching those 5-6 years ago. However, I didn't think I'd ever actually get the chance to go put my hands on any of those stones. So I kind of just swept it under the rug and was like, all right, whatever. So I found all these stones under this bridge in New York, started lifting them, lifted the first one, and I was hooked. And I was going there 3 times a week, which was probably too much, just trying to test my strength on them all. My body was hurting. I think I wasn't giving myself enough rest. I wasn't working out at home or going to the gym. It was just stones.
Yeah.
And talk about a bug. That's where the bug started for sure.
Oh, that's awesome. And so you said you started your first experience with stones was Atlas stones because you got interested in strongman. Did you have any prior history in any weightlifting or anything like that before? Did you grow up doing sports or what's your athletic background?
I did. I've played sports since, say, 5-6 years old. And I think it's fair to say I've always had a decent level of natural strength. I think it runs on both my mother and father's side. People are they're brutes. I mean, I have some of my uncles on my dad's side are just monsters and they've never touched a weight in their life. But I did. I've always played sports. Midway through my teenage years, I was a lot into body weight and calisthenics, handstand push-ups, 90-degree push-ups, human flags, all that cool stuff. My favorite person was Dominic Lacassi. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he was really good. Yeah, I don't know where he's from, but he was the GOAT of all those bodyweight exercises.
Like the street lifting or more gymnastics based or what kind?
I would say yes, probably a more advanced version of gymnastics because the movements he was doing just looked like they defied gravity. I mean, he would do these human flags, but he would do pull-ups sideways, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Which doesn't make sense. I know what you're saying. It's ridiculous.
Not at all. It was amazing. Just the core strength, the scapular stability, strength, all that good stuff. But I eventually outgrew that. I started lifting weights, and I want to say I started making goals for myself after I got dumped when I was 18 years old. That lit the fire within me. I think that's how it starts for us all.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's your revenge,
And
right?
yes,
Your revenge story.
absolutely.
Yeah, I'll show
Yep.
you.
So body weight turns to lifting weights. I never was really into the conventional stuff from the beginning. I loved one-arm snatches with a dumbbell, barbell. I loved the Turkish get-up. Still kept up with the body weight stuff, weighted dips, weighted pull-ups. Never got too much into benching, squatting, or deadlifting, which I'm not against it whatsoever. I think it's your bread and butter. I just never got into it. However, the normal bodybuilding stuff, which I still do, wasn't enough for me anymore. So I got into, like I said, finding any awkward object that I could lift just for fun. I have loads of videos just carrying around dressers and couches and stuff when my grandparents weren't home. And I didn't show them until years later when I didn't live with them anymore. I was like, hey, look what I used to do at your house.
Every time they
But
get back from work, they're wondering why, like, the furniture's been rearranged. You're just getting
why
your
is that
work
hole in
done.
the wall?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But I also got into rock climbing around that time. And excuse me. I
Oh, you're good.
was still lifting weights. I was rock climbing and I was bending horseshoes. And yep,
We
you
can
know
talk
all about it.
shoes over here. I'll
Had-
let you guys talk bending shoes. Polish my
Right,
shoes.
I forgot you did some shoe bending.
those are the good. That makes you strong. That gives you another type of strength that you can't get in the gym, or dare I say, even lifting stones. It's apples to oranges type of thing. It's two totally different things. And I didn't realize that until I stopped bending steel and tried doing it again years later. And it was so hard to do a shoe that I could melt in seconds.
Right.
But
It's interesting though that both of you are incredibly strong stone lifters, especially for your body size, and you have that commonality in the steel bending as part of your strength background. So
I truly think that steel bending was a huge part of my strength getting into stones, because when I did my first stone lifting session, I think I lapped it was either my first or second time stone lifting. I lapped a 375-pound stone, and because I had that wrist strength from steel bending, right? And I don't think I would have had that. Like, I did strongman before that. My grip was okay, but I got these stumpy little carny hands, and so all of my strength comes from my wrists, right? And so I think the steel bending carried over a ton. Do you find something similar?
I definitely feel like it built that awkward strength, and it built those muscles and tendons and ligaments
Yeah.
that you're not hitting at the gym because it's just an unlimited amount of angles, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
I do. I think in a way they go hand in hand. Put those two together, and you know, if you do one time a week and the other another time of the week, you'll be a force to reckon with. For me at the time, I wasn't lifting stones. I was rock climbing and steel bending, and Lord, I mean, I felt like I could have crushed skulls with these hands at the time.
Yeah.
It was great, but yeah, I believe strength is strength, and anything is going to have some type of carryover. Some things more than other,
Mhm.
and so yes, I do think that wrist strength from bending steel absolutely carries over to stones, and then you'd be proof of that because 370. You said 375, right? On your
Yeah, I
first
think it's
try.
375, 376 at our buddy Troy's place.
That's insane, especially for a first try. I mean, most people would train years and not do 375. So
Yeah, good lift.
I think
But you
stones. Sorry,
no, go ahead, man.
I think stones. I was talking to Jamie Goring about this, and I feel like that spot where natural stones start to get really heavy is the mid to upper 300 range, to where it's like, I don't know. That's where I feel like they start to really get heavy, and then 400, you're like, okay, now we're really getting somewhere.
At that point, it's probably also a matter of dimensions too, right? The stones are just getting so big that's not whether or not you're strong enough to lift it; it's whether or not you can get your arms around to find good purchase on it.
Absolutely, for sure. Shape is everything.
Yeah.
You guys know that. Like, there's stones that you've probably touched that were 350 that were harder than 400, and simply because of the shape, some are smoother than others, or
Yeah.
they might be super small but super heavy and dense. You're like, holy hell, Husafel or Devil's Stone, the stone that I have over here by the river. I've still yet to do anything to it. It only weighs 412 pounds. I've lifted many stones that heavy, but the grips on it suck.
Yeah,
So
that's what makes it possible or not. If you don't have good purchase points for your hands, it's just not going. I don't care who you are.
Even in Scotland, like we
absolutely,
saw, the Castle Menzies stone was an absolute bastard of a stone because it is glass smooth. It is glass. It's only 260.
Yeah.
And it's glass smooth. So
That gave me the most trouble out of all the Scottish stones. Was that one?
I applied these big long gibbon arms. I was able to interlock my fingers underneath, but luckily, or else it would have been a tough battle for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
it was that was one of those stones that when people say it's glass smooth was not exaggerated. It
Yeah.
was glass smooth like a tackuless Atlas stone,
Giant marble.
maybe even worse.
Yeah, I'd say it's worse.
marble.
It's and it's definitely worse than a Taculus Atlas stone.
Yeah.
I would say for sure it is. The pores would be much smaller and it's just denser. But just one thing I want to put out there before we actually dive into everything is John, how much do you weigh?
I currently weigh about 166 to 167 pounds, which is 74, 75 kilo.
Yeah, and I just want everybody to keep that in the back of their mind as we have this discussion, because my personal opinion is I think you are pound for pound the best stone lifter that I am aware of. You have done outrageous stuff and you continue to, and all at a very light body weight as far as stone lifting goes, right? Because
when you talk about lifting multiple stones above 412 pounds, like that is a stretch goal for most gargantuan sized people. So at your body weight, like you're talking about 160, 170%. No, sorry, over 210 to 230% of your body weight, that's crazy. That's Spider-Man stuff.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So no, that's I just wanted to put that out there because I think that's something
good context.
It is context because there's a lot of big people that do stone lifting, which is awesome because a lot of them comes over from strongman community and Highland Games community, and those tend to be bigger people. They don't necessarily come from the rock climbing community, which tends to be smaller, leaner people. And so just had to get that out there because it's important.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's jump into some of the travel stuff because I mean, as someone whose Instagram moniker is travel, lift stones, repeat, like you walk the walk more so than you talk the talk, right? If you look at your page, it is essentially an archive of phenomenal international stone lifts. So when was it that you first realized, because I know you had said you had sort of seen Full Sturker, you had seen Stoneland, you had seen Levantadores, but you had sort of ushered away the thought of you ever putting your hands on some of those stones, but that's clearly become a reality and a reoccurring reality for you. So when was it that this sort of dream all of a sudden took flight for you?
I would say about a year and a half ago. It was maybe longer than that. I think I put the idea of it as a potential possibility that was more so unlikely years ago.
Mm-hmm.
However, when it became I'm doing this was October of 2022. So about a year and a half ago. And I'm going to credit that one to Sean Urquhart. I'm throwing his name out there.
Oh, yeah.
I watched his videos, and when I tell you, so I booked the trip to Iceland in October of 2022, right about when I got that dream. And that was because I came across his videos of him in Iceland, him in Scotland, and the Faroe Islands. I'm like, this dude's a machine. And when I tell you, I watched his videos on YouTube at least once a month, just like for motivation. I would have my morning cup of coffee. Once I could feel the caffeine going through my system, I'd be like, I'm going to watch some Sean Urquhart videos.
Caffeine and Urquhart in the morning. Yeah, it's a recipe for success.
Yep. I went and I somehow found him on Facebook. Months after that, I didn't bother him until it was closer to the time I was going to Iceland. I want to say back in April of 2023, and I added him on Facebook, and I bombarded the poor guy. I definitely was picking his brain for sure, and he helped me tremendously on that trip. I wouldn't have been able to find a lot of the stones if it wasn't for him. But yeah, that's when the the dreams, the fantasies of going on these tours started. However, it was only Iceland at the time. I had no desire for Scotland, Faroe Islands. I didn't even know about Ireland because that wasn't a big thing yet. It was just the Iceland after watching Full Sturker. And I figured, oh well, what's the point of going to Scotland if I can go do the Full Sturker stones? And then I realized, well, it's not about the difficulty, it's about the history and putting your hands on the history. And that's everything to me. Obviously, I love testing my strength, don't get me wrong, but the history is everything, the people you meet. And yeah, after the Iceland one, I was like, okay, this isn't enough. I want more. So I saw him go on his Ireland tour. I was like, I want to do that. I saw the Scotland one. I was like, I'm going to do that eventually. And then I have a date with the Faroe Islands next summer. I would like to go to. Yeah, I mean, I'm not even. I'm kind of going insane with it. I want to get it out of my system now while I can. I have the time, I have the money, and I just have the ability to do it. I don't know when that'll change, but yeah.
How old are you?
I just turned 30 3 weeks ago today, actually.
Okay.
Happy belated birthday.
Yeah, happy. Welcome.
The other thing you got to keep in mind too is you got to get at least the historical stones that are currently known out of your way. Get those ones done, because I'd imagine that in the years to come, as all this kind of picks up steam, there's just going to be more and more popping up across the globe, and you're going to have to travel, lift stones, and repeat many times. So
exactly, yeah, you hit it on the head. I mean, right after I left Scotland, Jamie and Callum, I can't say his last name, Callum McLean, I believe it is. They discovered 2 new stones in Scotland probably a week after I left. And yeah, so like you said, that number's going to pick up tremendously.
That's so awesome. So even in a place like Scotland, where the work was started by Peter Martin, over a decade ago, there's still new stones coming to light. Like, you just get the sense that we're sort of standing, it's scratching the surface, right? We're standing at the edge of a very steep cliff, and all it's going to take is one more push, and we'll be rolling down a very, very, very steep but fun cliff where stones going to be popping up everywhere, right? You think about even here in Canada, where we thought, I don't know if it's going to be here. Well, Ryan Stewart has found 2 stones in the in northern Canada, and who knows? All it just takes is one spark, and all of a sudden the community lights on fire. So, in a good way, not to say no one lights your community on fire, but
just like it did with the Irish stones. I mean,
absolutely,
David found one, and then bam, bam, bam. So
that inertia starts, and it's pretty cool to see it. Yeah, absolutely.
So you just got back from a trip to Scotland, and can you let everyone know how many stones you did on it? Because I think it might be the most amount of stones anybody's done on a single tour.
So I was in Scotland for 8 days. I did a total of 36 stones. However, only 24 of them were historic. The other 12 were modern day testing stones from Jamie Gorian, which were phenomenal. If anything, I liked some of those more than I did some of the historic sites. They were just great, and they will one day be considered historic stones 50 years from now. People are going to hear the stories in it. But 36 total stones in 8 days, and for the whole 8 days I was there, I lifted stones. I take that back. I was there for 9 days because my flight got canceled on the way back. So that last day, I did not lift stones, but for 8 consecutive days, straight off the plane, jet lagged, did not sleep for a minute. I got off. I landed in Aberdeen. Like, I was like a zombie.
Yeah.
I had to get myself a Red Bull, got my rental car, and this was my first time driving in the UK, so I was all nervous. Like, okay, this is the opposite. Ended up being a piece of cake, but I didn't know that at first until I actually got on the road and drove. Drove an hour and 20 minutes to meet Jamie. Literally rolled up. Hey, Jamie, threw on my kilt, shook his hand, lifted the Inver stone, and that was it. We were on our way to the next one. I followed him over to Dalwhinnie. And then Newtonmore, Aukernack, and Bear Van, and it was lovely.
How long after you landed was it until you placed your hands on the first historical stone of that tour?
I would say an hour and 40 minutes.
Oh, come on, man. That's unreal.
Most people
I
probably
didn't have to go through.
yeah, most people haven't
Yeah.
even got to their hotel room by that time. So
I didn't even have my hotel booked yet.
You're
I didn't
an
even know where I was staying. I was like, I'll sleep in my rental car if I have to. I'll just put on some extra layer of clothing if I'm cold. But yeah, I was so amped of adrenaline
Oh,
that
no.
I couldn't do anything else. I couldn't eat. I couldn't eat the whole time I was there. You would think it'd be the opposite, right? You think
Yeah, we forced ourselves.
you're a
Yeah.
thoroughbred stone lifting maniac.
Yeah, it's awesome. What was it like to travel with Jamie? He seems like such an awesome guy, an amazing advocate, and I hope that he'd like to come on one of these days to this podcast because it'd be great to talk with him.
He is awesome. He made my tour. Let me just say, my stone lifting tour was 10 times better than I had anticipated because of the people I met. Jamie being one of those. Very full of energy, obviously very strong.
Very
And
strong.
he's got loads of stories to tell. And he helped me out a lot with giving me some confidence on my, let's see, I think it was day 4, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah. So I met him the first day, and then I met him again on my 4th day, and that was Ardverlick Day.
Yeah,
And
it's a good one.
I was, yeah, it was, from what everyone said, I was like, okay, it's probably going to be hard like Dridvik, but I was confident in my abilities. I had no doubts that if it was dry, it was going to be easy for me.
But it wasn't dry, was it?
Oh, no.
I've seen the video.
It was awful. I woke up that morning and I just hear thunder and I could hear the rain and I'm like, mother effer, come on. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? If anything, it's just going to put my bicep tendons under more stress. Just help me out this once. But that wasn't the case. First we went to Pudrick, and Menackley. Is that how you say it?
Monachile?
Something like that.
My
pronunciation's horrible, so I won't even try.
Any Scottish listeners send us some hate messages.
Apologies.
Bastardize the name of your stone. Sorry.
Apologies in advance.
Yeah.
But that was our first 2 stones of the day. And although they're easy, one, the conditions sucked because it was raining.
Yeah.
Those stones were drenched in mud and horse manure, nonetheless.
Yeah.
But you want to know what was the worst part? Was that it was wretched, frigid cold outside.
Mhm.
So I don't know what it was about that time of day. Jamie and I, we couldn't feel our fingers. And on top of it, Bao, the horse, kept like getting in the way and trying to eat the chalk. I actually have a video. He had
Calcium
my chalk.
carbonate. Those are good nutrients for a horse.
Yeah, that made part of the experience fun. But just how when your hands get cold, it's hard to use your fingers and the dexterity and stuff.
We're from
When you're
Alberta,
trying
man.
to-
We know well.
You walk into school, it
There
takes a
you
lot of
go.
time before you can write a letter properly. It's like, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like miserable. And that was the case. I think I went before Jamie on the Pudrick stone.
Yep.
The thing only weighs 206 pounds or something, maybe even less.
Mm-hmm.
And it just hurt to pick it up and load it because I was so cold. There was no warm-ups. And I loaded it still, but it was just miserable. And then the Menackley stone, Monachile stone, I went, and that was drenched in mud, so that was really hard to pick up.
Mm-hmm.
But we both managed, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the start of that day. And then we went to Lockville. Say again?
That's a carry, that one, isn't it? Did you guys do the carry or the load?
We just did chest. He did shoulder, I think. I just did chest. I didn't even know you were supposed to carry it, but
Yeah, I forget. Oh man, I'm trying to remember because I think we did the carry of that, or I carried it and you loaded it. I don't remember.
That stone is not
It's
originally
transplanted.
from there, like around
Yeah.
the Pudrick plinth that was transported there. And I think prior to us being there, that's when Eddie Hall and Powell Dwyer and a couple of strongmen went there, and they did a carry with it a number of
Okay.
times around the plinth. And I think maybe that's where
Maybe that's where I got
the
it.
carry aspect started.
Okay.
So yeah,
that makes sense then. Yeah, because you're right. The Monacoly stone was in the spot that the now replacement stone called the Loch Foyle stone is placed by Jamie.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that wasn't there when we
Yeah,
yeah,
I guess it was. They gave it to the individuals at the house who actually used to live close by to where I live in Illinois.
no
Which is
way.
crazy small world. Yeah, I live in a little town
Weird.
called Morris. They lived in Roxford, Illinois. I'm like, when they told me that, I was like, you guys ever hear of Morris? And I don't think they did, but to be fair, no one's heard of Morris. It's, but it just goes to show it's a small world.
Yeah, yeah.
They were lovely folks. They were very welcoming.
They were very kind to us as well.
Yes. And it was just, those were the things that made the experience. But after that was Loch Foyle, and then we went to Ardvorlich, and it was a little warmer over there. And I remember being in the car with Jamie Gorian, and him and I, we didn't take our kilts off, because why would you take them off? So we're driving around Scotland in our kilts,
Sure.
and he was driving that day. He let me hitch a ride with him to kind of give me a break from driving. And so we're driving in the Highlands in our kilts, and he's telling me the stories of the stones. And here I am, I'm stressing out about the Ardvorlich stone because I'm like, I know I can lift it, but it's raining, it's pouring. This is the one stone I don't want it to be wet and muddy when I get there.
Conditions were against you. Yeah.
Yeah. And Jamie's just like, man, don't worry about it. You got it. You just got to fire up the engines. I'll never forget him saying that to me. And when he said it to me, it just clicked. I was like, that's some good advice, Jamie. I'm going to fire up the engines when I get there. So I get there, and I wasn't going to touch that thing without warming up my distal bicep tendon somehow. So I'm just sitting there curling my backpack for 30 reps, probably 5-7 pounds. And we dried it off as much as we could with the towel because the rain was still coming down. So dried it up, really got in there and chalked it up. And I always like to do a little break off the floor, a couple inches to kind of get a feel to know if
the balance
the grip is right. Yeah.
So just a friendly greeting, right? It's like a handshake between people. You're like, all right, yeah.
Nice
I'm not
to
gonna go
meet
for the
you.
whole thing yet. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, absolutely. And I did that, and I was just like, okay, hell yeah, this is coming up, no problem. I should have just done it there, but he didn't have his phone out. And when I tell you, and no disrespect to the Ardvorlich stone, it's a beast, but I could have shouldered that thing. The only reason I didn't try was because we didn't have mats. He didn't use one of those crash mats, and I am not going to be one of those people who break a historic stone, God forbid. So, no problem. I got it up to my lap, got it up to my chest, and I was like, damn. Challenging stone, but
you're very strong. So
yeah. I stressed out for no reason, and yeah, the chest lift was good enough for me, and I had a lot of stones to go. So why was I going to waste my energy?
There's two things to touch on there. Number one is sort of a thank you that you essentially robbed yourself of further enriching your experience with that stone to make sure that it was preserved for other people to have a similar experience.
That's class.
Which is that's like very admirable of you, and thank you for doing that. Number two, that was such a studly lift that today you said Mr. Tom Havlin gave you his seal of approval. He liked that video of yours. So
yeah, and I can't tell you how much it lit up my day. Just
Tom's a good dude.
He is, and he's
talked to him a lot. Yeah. Yeah, he's a good guy. He actually has one of our Edmonton Stones of Strength shirt. We got it sent over to Australia for him. I think
What
it was
size was
I think
that?
it was a triple XL or maybe yeah. He's a big dude.
It's probably a little tight on him. He probably needs to go
Yeah,
up
I
a
know.
size.
So, John, I just had a quick question because you're talking about the Ardvillic, and I see your full sticker tattoo, and I wanted to know how did which is awesome, well earned. How did you find that the full sticker Jitvik compared to the Ardvillic? Because they're both known to be very smooth, very challenging for the weight, and almost within a few pounds of each other.
My honest take on them both is Dridvik is much more challenging
Okay.
because the Ardvillic, although the handholds aren't great, they're not treacherous. Whereas
Mhm.
Dridvik was treacherous. It's as smooth as people say. Not, I wouldn't say as smooth as Castle Menzies. However, it's almost 85 to 90 pounds difference in weight. So definitely that one goes to Dridvik. I know Ardvillic I got on my first try. Dridvik, which I have an interesting story about that if you wanted to hear it. That took
Of
about
course.
3 tries. So I got to Iceland and Dridvik was my first stop. And there's 4 stones. There's Amlui, weakling, weighs like 52 pounds or something. Half Gradiker, 119 pounds. Half Sturker, 220. And then full Sturker, 339. And when I walked up to those stones, let me tell you, that full Sturker stone, way bigger than it looks like in videos, way more intimidating. And at that time, I had lifted many stones as heavy, if not more. However, I think I had never lifted a stone that smooth. And I think the environment, the gravel that it's in, made a difference because it's unlevel. It was also a little wet. I got lucky with the weather. It was mostly dry, but it was a tad wet on there. And I was so excited that I didn't even start with Hamlui. I just started with half Sturker, which was a lesson learned for me. I'll never do that again. I always take my time now. I mean, I'll go find a 50 to 100-pound stone somewhere in the distance, and I'll do 20 reps of stiff leg deadlifts before, and then I'll do curls with my backpack to get everything warm. But so I went straight to half Sturker, and hardest 220-pound stone I ever lifted in my life. I mean, when I lifted it, I threw it to my shoulder, and there were people there watching, which was cool. But it was way more challenging than I had anticipated. Normally, I can one motion to shoulder a stone that heavy. This thing was, I don't know why I was struggling to break it off the ground. I think it had a lot to do with me being cold and not warming up. And also something to do with it just being a beast for 220.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that, and I got it. First try, but a very hard first try. And everyone's clapping. They're like, yeah, woo, you're very strong. Good job. But me, my confidence was like, oh my God, that was way harder than I wanted it to be.
That's the little
How the
brother.
hell? Huh?
That's
Yeah.
the little brother. Yeah.
Yeah. How am I going to do that one, which is 120 pounds more,
Right.
when it's not like I struggled for my dear life with it, but I
Mhm.
struggled more than you would think for a 220-pound stone. So I try not to let it get to my head too much. And I chalked up probably less than I should have. That was another lesson learned. Chalked up, and I went to lift it, and it didn't move. And that 15 people turned into 10. They're like, oh, nice try. I have a guy over to my right. He's just like, you know what, man? That thing's about 120 pounds more than that one. I don't know if this is going to happen.
Oh, it's game on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's see it.
I'm thinking to myself, you shut up. Don't say that.
That's
I
right.
didn't say it out loud, of course, but I was in my mind. I was like, "Don't you say that, you
Yeah,
jerk!"
will you fuck off?
Yeah. Other after, like, but of course, I went to another attempt because I have a hard time giving up on stones. I mean, my dumb
You
ass
went a
would.
long way for those stones, right? So you got to give it more than one try, of course.
Absolutely. And people don't understand, like, you have to feel out a stone. Sometimes I
Mm-hmm.
can't budge a stone on the first try, and all of a sudden I take enough tries, and those tries that were failed were actually kind of warm ups.
Yes.
So
You're waking up.
those, yeah. And I think you have to be really warm to go for a max stone. And so I went for the second attempt, and this time it broke off the floor a couple inches. Well, that now 10 people turned into 5. And I was feeling like shit. I was like, you people didn't even give me a chance. Come on. And I was with a friend I have who lives in England. He doesn't lift stones, but he came along on the journey for support, and he was my cameraman for a lot of it. And of course, he's just like, come on, John, you got this. Let's go. And so I chalk up again, and I'm kicking the gravel away from the stone so that I can really dig my hand under there. I feel like I didn't cut my hands underneath as much as I ideally should have the first 2 attempts. So I did that on the third attempt with still about 5 people watching. The other people just walked away. And sure as shit, that thing flew up to my knees easily. And bam, right there and then I knew that this was the start of it all. There's not a stone on this tour that's going to stop me. And I think after watching my video, I saw a cheeky smile on my face that I didn't know I was doing in the time. But when I'm wrestling it on my lap and getting into position to get it to my chest, I just felt this rush of adrenaline, and I knew this was the beginning of a great tour to come. And I got it. And like an asshole, I probably dropped it, and I shouldn't have. I just, in the time, I wasn't thinking. Luckily, it's a gravel ground.
I was going to say,
So
you're on a beach. It's a little different.
Yeah.
yeah. And even then, I still try to, but I was so overwhelmed with excitement that I just totally forgot in that moment. I was like, oof. My friend called me out on it later. I was like, yeah, you're right. But yeah, that was the start of it all.
You had a similar cheeky smile after when you lifted the Arbalik too, which made a lot of fun. When I was putting together the little promo video for this episode, it was like, oh, lift a big stone, cheeky smile, zoom in. Lift a big stone, cheeky smile, zoom in. It was awesome. It was made for a good
Absolutely.
cadence to the video. Yeah.
Always gets a good, when you do that smile, you make it look like it's easier than it actually is, but it's really not easy.
Yeah, I did that for the Dinnies.
The Dinny still does.
I picked the Dinnies, held them, and because I didn't realize until we got there that you had to hold them for 2 seconds. And Brett was like, "Yeah, you lift them," or maybe it was Jim's plane was saying you got to hold it for 2 seconds. I forget now; it's all a blur. And then I was like, "You have to hold it for 2 seconds." And then Brett chipped in. He's like, "You're going to be fine." And I'd never lifted because anytime I'd done it was just on pins and in my garage, and I would pick it and I'd hold it for half a second. It came up, but I couldn't hold it. And then so I got it up into my head. I'm like, okay, 1,000, 2 1,000. I'm like, I got it. Like, I couldn't help it. I was also like, you don't want to have like, when you get your soul, they basically just like,
Yeah.
like, well, I don't want all these pictures. You just have that
Like an overstuffed sausage.
Oh Lord.
So, that picture though is now a cutout on. It was a cutout just over a week ago on the biggest newspaper in Canada. It was front page.
Yeah,
Picture of this knucklehead lifting the Dinny stone. So
pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's gnarly. I'm glad. I know you talk about trying to keep it between like the stone lifting community because it's kind of small, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it's awesome that you guys got recognition for that because you're obviously worked hard for what you're doing. You work your ass off lifting stones, putting together the podcast, and I just think it's something more people should be aware of. And I think it's going to become a lot bigger throughout the years. I think more people are going to catch that bug
Mm-hmm.
because it's just so cool and primal.
It's so cool.
Yeah, and we're seeing it more and more too. Like, and for example, like there was a cool video posted today in Utah. The Utah Stones of Strength group had like 30 people hanging out doing some stone lifting, and some female stone lifters that were lifting like chesting 240-pound stones, like incredibly strong athletes. And I don't want to. making an inference here, but I think a couple of them are rock climbers. And I'm just wondering, too, from your background being a rock climber, what is it about stone lifting that has captured your attention more so than rock climbing did? Because they're very comparable activities. In one, you bring yourself to the stone, the other one, you bring the stone to you. So,
I would honestly say I think they compare to each other so much because, like you said, one you bring yourself to the stone, the other you bring yourself to you. But it's still an art of the stone.
mhm.
And I can almost tell you if there's one thing that I love and am passionate about as much as I am lifting stones, it would be climbing them. Unfortunately, I don't have access to
Right.
a nearby climbing gym anymore. However, I think they go great hand in hand. I think rock climbing will absolutely carry over to stones. Maybe stones less to rock climbing only because it's not necessarily moving your body weight through space. It kind of is, but
Yeah.
rock climbing is more so control of your body weight, whereas stone lifting, your body's in space and you're still having to control it. However, it's a little different. But the awkward positions that you experience in rock climbing are all, it's just infinite, very
Mhm.
similar to lifting stones. No stone is the same as the last one, except for maybe Atlas stones. But
Sure.
natural stones, this 300-pound stone is not that 300-pound one. And the same goes for rock climbing. No route is anywhere near it. It doesn't compare to the other route, whether it's a V3 and another V3. They're two different V3s. And that's how they grade them in rock climbing.
Yeah, we've done a little bit of bouldering. Our youngest brother, there's three of us, and our youngest one doesn't do stone lifting, but he does like rock climbing, and so yeah, we've gone and done bouldering, and
Yeah.
it's awesome.
I
Like
mean, in
it's
rock climbing, your strength to weight ratio is so much more important than in stone lifting, right? Where you're trying to minimize your own personal weight so that you're not carrying that load all the way up. Whereas in stone lifting, it's less important. Um, but no, I mean the carryover of the like grip strength, forearm strength, flexibility, arms, back, shoulder mobility, all of those things, which it makes total sense why you see a lot of these folks that are rock climbers migrating to stone lifting, and right off the bat, they're not starting at the ground level; they're already at the 10th floor doing
yeah,
great. Yeah,
and that's actually a good lead into the Utah Stones of Strength because there's a couple stone lifters featured in that documentary, and you've also gone and done the Utah Stones of Strength. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Yes, they are. I loved the Utah Stones of Strength, and I was glad to be able to check it off my bucket list. When I went there, I did every stone that basically every stone that they had. The only ones I didn't do was the buffalo because it was broken, and I couldn't find the have stones because the I guess they were relocated or something. However, every other stone set up aside from those two, I was able to do, and I have to credit Ryan Stewart and everyone else involved in that whole making. They were amazing. I had as much fun on that tour that I did in Iceland.
Right on.
And oh yeah, it was. I absolutely recommend it to you guys. I recommend it to anyone.
Well, it's
Put
on
it
the
on your
bucket
bucket
list.
list.
yeah.
Very good stones in beautiful places, and the stones themselves were great. I took particular notice to the Eureka stones. I don't know what it was about them. It was a set of 308, 320, and 380 pounder, and you load them onto a plinth.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and just they were beautiful stones, very sharp. I will say, although the difficulty of the stones in Utah Stones of Strength weren't that of the ones in Iceland, they beat me up more
Oh,
because when I tell you by the second day of that tour, so my first day on the tour was the Moab stone, very smooth, 232 pounds, very similar to half Sturker at Dridvik.
okay.
The second day, I went to the Hogsback Stones, and already when I got there, I was forming blisters on my hands, right? And they had not yet opened up. You know, you could kind of see them forming on your hand, and you can see the blood underneath, and
Laying in
kind
wait.
of, yeah, they're kind of squishy and disgusting.
Yeah.
And that was actually an example of where I can't say a learning curve, because when I was at the Escalante Hogback Stones, there's 4 stones. It's 232 pounds, 294, 316, and 380. That 380 stone was one of the hardest 380s I've ever lifted because of the size.
Okay.
And I think that one in particular gave me a struggle because of my height. I'm about 5'6.5", 5'7",
Okay.
and it was so wide that I could easily break it off the ground, but I was having trouble wrestling it to my legs. So
The snatch grip
I'm
pull, that style.
no, I I was probably close. I was shoulder width apart, maybe a little more, maybe like that. But it was just such a wide stone
Yeah.
that every time I got it up, I would try twisting it to my left, which is what I do.
Yep.
It's one of my techniques. I couldn't do that because it was just so big, and that's the stone that when I tell you I attempted it 20 plus times that day, it's not an exaggeration, and that probably wasn't a good idea on my part, but I eventually got it, and I didn't get a full chest lift. I got it to my belly, and I was ecstatic after that, but I think it took a lot out of me. However, I was still lucky enough to be successful on the rest of the tour, and I credit that to adrenaline. I think the human body's an amazing thing.
It is. If you know how to harness it, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But I probably got off on a tangent. Back to what I think about Utah Stones of Strength. I think it is an amazing setup. I think he had lovely finds with it, beautiful places. The areas had good history. My memory is awful, so when I listen to stories of a lot of things, I don't necessarily remember everything, but I remember studying like the stories of all the areas like Eureka, Escalante, Moab, stuff like that. And it fits that he was able to put some of these stones in some of these areas or go on the Easter egg hunt, as he says in the
Yeah.
documentary.
Make them a destination. Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Yes.
I love the concept of what Ryan did with that. Like Ryan's a good friend and he's a mentor, and I just admire him a ton. And that the Utah Stones of Strength was like not just part, but a direct influence for the idea of starting the Edmonton Stones of Strength,
Mhm.
which has been so important for us here. So
Yeah.
I just think that Ryan and everyone involved in that project deserves so much recognition because it's kind of what is, the catalyst for this modern Stones of Strength thing. Outside of a stone here or there that's featured in a Highland Games or a strongman competition or something like that, those are the first, at least that I'm aware of modern stones being pushed out there based around the concept of historical stones going on a tour and having those challenges. So
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah.
Ryan, well done, man.
Yeah. And we preach, I mean, I don't know, hopefully it doesn't come across as being preachy, but we just talk about how, and not to say easy to undersell the effort that's involved, but how accessible it is for people to find stones and put them forth as a test of strength for others to come and visit. So, like to your point, you had equally as rewarding of an experience doing the Utah Stones of Strength circuit as you did traveling across the ocean to Iceland. So, for those of us who are in North America, right, there's an ability for us to have that meaningful stone tour experience without having to travel internationally. And so you have like the Utah Stones of Strength, the Ohio Stones of Strength. You have down in Colorado, Peacemaker Stonelifting has got a bunch of stones down there. You have the New England Stones of Strength. Like there's these little pockets popping up everywhere, so you could easily map out an awesome stonelifting tour here in North America, which is just so cool. And we're hoping that same model that the Utah Stones of Strength and the Ohio Stones of Strength has used here in North America, people will start to replicate overseas in areas that, at least to their knowledge, they don't have access to historical stones of strength. Because again, the reward is not the reward, sorry, I should say the reward is very much so in getting in touch with that history, but it's also getting an experience where you can test yourself, go visit these beautiful places. And then to your point, what you said earlier is meeting the people that are associated with these stones. That's what makes the experience rewarding, is it's the strength, the history, and then the community all sort of in equal parts. So kudos to anyone who's doing that here. So
For sure.
yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Right
Absolutely.
on. So Ireland, that you have just healed up from Scotland, what, 36 stones, 8 days, and now you're going over to test all of the newfound but very historically connected giants in Ireland. How did that whole idea start? Was it just like you're sort of knocking them down one after the other? You got to go Iceland, Scotland, Ireland, Faroe Islands, Sweden, or was it just the sort of, because like the sort of cultural surge that David Keown has created around those stones? There's a gravity to that a lot of us are just like, gosh, I just want to go over there to be a part of this.
I would say it has to do with everything you just stated, pretty much. I never thought too much of the Ireland stones until I don't know if it was just before my Iceland tour or during my Iceland tour when Sean Urquhart was telling me.
Your morning
about
caffeine and Urquhart, right? You're having caffeine and Urquhart in the morning, and he was over.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. He is a huge reason. He's a huge part of my success in
He's
Iceland.
He's a huge part of everyone's success in stone lifting. He's done so much research and gives so much back. He's a great dude.
Absolutely. And it's just very generous with information, but also simply taking the time to get back to you, because let's face it, we all have lives, and it's not easy to just get back to people on social media, and he makes the time to get back to me.
Right.
And I, even to this day, I message him at least once a week. Just, I like shooting the shit with him. I hope to meet him one day. I want to lift stones with him 100%. We actually were planning on doing it back in November. We were going to meet up in Canada, I think.
Oh,
and
whereabouts?
Yeah.
You don't usually want to come to Canada in November.
What?
Also snowball.
Yeah.
At the time, so I was in New York for Thanksgiving. I'm originally from Buffalo.
Okay.
I'm not from the Chicago area. I'm from Buffalo, New York, hence the Buffalo Bills. But so very close to the Toronto border.
Yep.
And we were going to meet up in Canada. I think it was Canada. Forgive me if I'm wrong.
No,
to go lift. There were Atlas stones somewhere in Canada that John Paul Sigmundson once lifted. Have you heard of those?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is that in Ontario? That would have to be, I would imagine. I'm trying to think now. I'm familiar with what you're saying. I can't place it, though.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. They have Bex Innes, the caretaker of those stones out in Ontario.
So that'd be Ontario. Yep.
Yeah.
Bang on.
Yeah. We were going to meet up to do that, and a few things went on. I think both in our personal lives, but also at the time there was an explosion on the bridge from New York to Ontario, so it shut down. So it kind of put a damper on those plans.
Okay.
However, I mean it's on my bucket list to lift with him eventually. I would also love to come to Edmonton and lift the Edmonton Stones of Strength for sure.
Yeah, dude, you should. If you can make it up one of these times, we'd have a ton of fun. We got a lot of good challenges. We don't have the history, but man, there's some good challenges here. Very, very good challenges.
Beers and stones. That's
just shooting the shit. You cut out there for a second.
You cut out there. Sorry, what was it?
Beers and stones. And just shooting the shit, homies.
Come up for that. Yeah.
And we heard a rumor that another Canadian stone lifting behemoth might be moving to our neck of the woods too. So apparently Zach McGuire is moving to a town just outside of Edmonton sometime soon. So yeah, David, Troy, Zach, like there's some high level lifters here. So
and we just found out today there's a local strongman named Tristan Hoth just placed 5th in World's Strongest Man, like the finalist.
To him, so.
Yeah, and he's gonna come have a lift with us one of these days. So he said, after World's Strongest Man, he's gonna come down. So having the fifth strongest man on the planet come to lift with us. It'll be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what he can do.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be rad.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm trying to think of where to take this, man, because there's so much to talk with you about. Because before we head out of here, I want to talk with you about training. But also before we touch on that, maybe Sweden, because you're planning going to Sweden as well. So just clarify. Let me clarify if I'm wrong here. But you're going to have done Scotland, you're going to do Ireland and Sweden, all in not just 1 year, but basically one spring, summer, fall type thing, right?
Something, yeah, probably like within a 3 to 4 month period. So
Okay, so it is basically a summer then.
something like that. I'll be stopping in Iceland for 2 days because last time I was there, I ran out of time and I couldn't do the Latra stones. So and you got to do the Latra. So I'm going there to do that, and then I'll go to Sweden for 6 days, and I'll be there for 6 days. My goal is no less than 50 stones. However, I have like
50?
70 on the map. Yeah. Sean's going the week before me. He'll be going there the week before me on that. And I think I'm just going to miss him. I think I'll be getting to Iceland right as he gets to Sweden.
Okay.
But yeah, it's going to be a lot of work capacity. And
No doubt.
I'm not going to underlook any of those stones. I'm not going to underestimate them. A lot of them are lighter, but I always take every place I go very seriously, and because you just never know what's going to pop up. So I'll go in with the same headspace as I go on any tour. I'm going to prepare as best as possible. I'm going to make sure to get adequate rest beforehand. Everything that goes into it, getting a good night's sleep, carb loading the week before, resting for a week, taking ice cold showers is a thing of mine, hanging upside down for 7 minutes a day on with my gravity boots, just everything that goes into it. And yeah, it's gonna be.
Yeah, that's big, man.
Speaking of big stone, but like big, like the stones in Ireland too, like those are sort of like they're huge stones. They're not
huge.
They're not trivial. Any of them. Some of them are very awkward shaped. The flag of Den is essentially a giant rectangle. They're just, but those sound to be sort of right in sort of your sweet spot, right? You can lift the sort of 360 to 420 plus stones, but is there a particular stone there that you have your sights set on, or one that might worry you more than the rest?
Yes, there is. I'll first start by saying the stone that I've had my sights set on the most for the past 6-7 months is the flag of Den.
Yeah.
Not difficulty wise. My intentions are to get it to my chest, and I feel good. I humbly say that I feel confident that I'm going to be able to get it to my chest.
Yeah, you put the work in, so you don't have to. Yeah, it's not a brag at all. You put the work in. Yeah, the track record's there.
But the stone that's going to be my nemesis, and I've made a promise to myself that no matter what happens, whether it's 3 inches or 3 feet that it's coming off the ground, is the Ballingarry Cross stone. It is a behemoth of a stone, and I talked to David about it. And the story to it, he believes, is just a legend. He doesn't think anyone's ever actually lifted it, but apparently a man lifted it onto a high wall 40-something years ago. And I was just talking to someone the other day who went to it, and he said that he could barely move it, and it was hard just to stand up. So that one...
What's the weight of that, sorry?
It's estimated, I believe David estimated it at 200 kilo. I don't think he weighed it. I might be wrong. He estimated it at 200. However, I feel like it's a lot heavier.
That's the Ballingarry Crossstone?
Ballingarry Crossstone, yeah. I can send you some pictures later.
Yeah, please do. I'm curious about this one.
It looks like a giant Husafell stone. Literally like a giant Husafell stone. Probably twice as thick. I would say a little taller.
Yeah, that's
it's a problem for sure. And it's that stone that I wake up in the morning, I think about it. I go to bed at night, I think about it,
Good man.
and I don't tell myself anything other than you're gonna get it off the ground. I just don't know how.
Yeah.
So I create this vision in my head where I get it to my chest,
Yeah.
and I try to stick with that vision just to remain optimistic. However, at this point in time, the best thing I can do is promise myself that it's leaving the ground.
Yeah.
And yeah,
So it's
I'll
not
have
what leaves the ground, it's how high off the ground.
Yeah,
it
for
is,
sure.
right?
yes, exactly. I don't think it's gonna be easy, but
Wow, not at
I
that
like
point. No, that's huge.
yeah.
Well, that would be incredible to get off. But you were bulletproofing your back, to say the least, man. Maybe now is a good time to jump into your training tactics, because the stuff that you do is wild, man. Like I've said this before, but there are many, many, many ways to get strong. And if anyone tells you they have the way to get strong, they're full of shit. And the fact that you are doing what you can do without having a history of squatting or deadlifting or any, quote unquote conventional powerlifting moves is wild. But you do a lot of work with the spider bar, and you are making your back very, very strong, and it's clearly working. So would you mind maybe explaining a bit of your training principles to people out there? Because I think that that's something that people really like hearing about.
400-pound good mornings are a very good way to make your back strong.
Yeah, no doubt. I think you almost got up to 5 at one point, didn't you?
I got up to 405 plus 100 in chains.
There you go. Yeah, that's wild, man. That's crazy. Yeah, if you don't mind letting everybody know a little bit about whether you have training principles, if there's a program you follow, or how first of all, your generalized training, or specifically when you are getting ready for a Stonelifting tour, what exactly do you do?
So I don't personally follow a specific program that's written anywhere. I think what you said in regards to if someone says they know the way to train specifically, they're full of shit.
Selling you something.
I think there's
yeah.
there's definitely many ways. And my way personally that works for me is and this might people might think I'm crazy, but I am an advocate for high reps. Except for good mornings, except for when I did Turkish get-ups, stuff like that, or one-arm snatches, but I always love a minimum of sets of 10. So instead of squats, I told you I don't do squats. I do Bulgarian split squats, my all-time favorite.
You're the only person that's ever said that.
Yeah.
Because those things are ruthless, man. You're a glutton for punishment.
I am. I will. I'll try to. I will never use a weight on that I can't do for 10 reps at least, unless I'm maxing, which is very rare. I don't max too often. However, I'll do sets of 10, hell, anywhere to 10 to 20 reps. Instead of deadlifts, I do my good mornings. I love to go super deep. And in particular, my two favorite good mornings, two favorite variations of the good morning, spider bar and the seated SSB bar.
Yep.
And you've probably seen more videos of me using the spider bar. However, I actually like the seated good mornings with the SSB bar better. And I'll tell you why I like both. I like the spider bar because if you notice on where the weights are placed on it, it's a little lower than up here.
Yep.
So I think the center of gravity as to where the weight is more similar to that of where you would lift a stone, because when you're lifting a stone, you're almost pulling it between your legs. Whereas you deadlift with a barbell and you're pulling it from out in front of you, not so much the same center of gravity. So I love the good mornings like that. I love to go deep because when I go and pull a stone, I'm going deeper than you would on a deficit deadlift.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's very important to build the strength in that rounded back. And I think it needs to be done over time. People probably look at me and they're like, oh, my back hurts just watching that.
Yeah,
I'm sure you guys
it's
hear that
all
all the time.
nonsense. Yeah,
And look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you at 30 years old I'm not pain free. I think everyone is going to have some type of ache and pain somewhere. I had them when I was 20,
sure.
but we're not crippled. Our bodies are very strong, capable. If you build it up, it gets used to the stress that you put it on, and it will get strong in ways that you train it.
Oh, I've been having back
So
issues associated with sitting too much. So I mean, it's
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
exactly, that's going to hurt your
Part of
back
the
too.
role where things start to get locked up and tight. It's just, it is what it is, right?
100%. And yeah, you know the deal with that. Oh, you drop the stone on your foot. You got to watch your feet, your toes.
Never done it once. I've done thousands of lifts. And I've
You've never hurt your toe, but the number of times you've had a prolapse, I mean,
Oh,
into the dozens, right?
or underwear.
Yeah, he lives with a parachute behind him just to catch everything.
Never you're gonna blow out your asshole or something.
Yeah.
I've
No.
never once done that.
No.
God no,
People have no idea what they're talking about.
they don't. And really, I think it's just simple lack of knowledge, ignorance per se, and
Ignorance is the right word.
People are told around us
yeah,
that doing those sort of things that put you in a compromised position are not safe, which is true. They're not safe for someone who hasn't built up the capacity to do that. So in some ways they're uninformed, but if you're uninformed, do not comment on things you're uninformed about. That's a good general rule for life,
Yeah.
especially code of conduct for Instagram. If you don't know, just
Shut up.
be quiet.
Yeah.
absolutely. And I've kind of trained myself not even to respond to people like that anymore.
Yeah.
As much as I want to, not in an aggressive way. I kind of want to just respond in a way that educates them, but I don't waste my energy.
Yeah.
However, so yes, I love the deep good mornings. I think personally they work best for me. They might not work great for anyone else. I think someone can benefit from a conventional deadlift. I think that lift, although I've never really trained it, will absolutely build that foundation, because you're not going to lift a 600-pound stone and not be capable of deadlifting 600 pounds on a bar,
Mhm.
So I believe that training in the gym, weight room, is very crucial for building the base before you start lifting stones and even during. I mean, I don't really train stones. When I go and lift stones, it's more so, and I don't support this. I don't tell anyone to go do this. I more so go and lift stones out in the community around here just to go test my strength and have a fun day.
Sure.
The majority of my training comes from my own weight room, or I go to the local gym and do some things. But like I said, I'm an advocate for high reps. And I think that has helped me build the work capacity to do many stones over a week long and not show fatigue. Because when I was in Scotland, I did 36 stones, but I saved the hardest ones for last. I think, so 36. So stone number 31, I'm bad with math. Stone number 31 would have been Clach Eek Kulti, which is the first stone in Eust Island, and it's heavy, but it's a lighter stone. It's 150 kilograms.
Okay.
And then the stone I did after that was Altac Dom Hill and Moore, aka Big Donald stone. That was the one that you probably saw a video of Jamie getting it to his chest, and I think he said he estimates it at 200 kilograms, and I agree with that one. I think it's probably about 200 kilo. After that was Altac Alistair Moore. And I don't think that was as heavy. I think that was probably 190, 195. But it was
So
more
big.
awkward.
Yeah.
That's a huge
It was
stone.
it was ginormous.
Yeah.
And
Sling and
yeah,
slap.
yeah, it was a monster. And I got it to my knees. I got it to lap. And when I was trying to wrestle it in my lap, I think this was my third attempt. It was full of mud on the one side. I wanted to twist it around at an angle so I could kind of wrestle it up, but it was very muddy and it just slipped away from my grasp. And at that point, I was very happy where I got it. To me, that was a successful lift, and I was down for moving on to Alltac Gillymore, which was I got it to my chest, but I would say it was almost equally as difficult as Alistair Moore. That was probably the toughest fight of a stone I had on that tour. I don't usually scream when I'm lifting stones or lifting anything, but when I like, it's very rare that I show signs of struggle. But when I got it up there, and that one was muddy too, which was pissing me off because I got it to my lap, and if you watch the video, you can hear me say something along the lines of "God damn it" or "Son of a bitch," because I had it in my lap and I'm wrestling it, but it's full of mud on this one side. So trying to find the best way to grip it, and I eventually pull it up and I get it to my chest. I'm like, "Raw!" And
You smile.
that was everything. I could not smile for that one. I couldn't even think of smiling for that one. But I remember after that, I walked back to my car, and as I was walking back to my car, I knew I was going to go find I was going to go look for the stone that Jacob Hetherington found, which was Altac Gilby Allen Heisker, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, which was the big, ginormous stone that I personally would say is about 250 kilo, 550
So
pounds.
diamond shaped rough one that you pull off the yeah.
Yeah. So
Just
Jacob found that through his
50
research.
kilos. No one was known to stand with something like that, were they? Sorry, like with 250 kilo, nobody was known to stand with it. That would just be a half lift. Is that right?
No, he stood the stone up with the tip down on top of another stone and then picked it to chest that way, right? Is that the one?
That's how I did it.
Yeah.
However,
Okay.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
I don't know how it was done. So Jacob he'd be the better guy to talk to about it, but I believe from what he talked to me about and told me was the stone is named after the gentleman who lifted the stone. I don't know how long ago, maybe 100 years ago. I could be wrong. That was the last time it was said to have been lifted. There's no knowledge as to how the stone was lifted, whether it was stood up like I did or half style. However, when I got to the stone, I realized that it was propped up on a bunch of other rocks,
Mm-hmm.
like a normal half stone would have been. So I'm assuming a half lift was done.
Okay.
However, I couldn't do that version because it was so wide that there was just no way in hell
Sure.
I could do that. So I kind of like a tire flip. This one took me 4 attempts, I think, and I was ready to leave. And the gentleman that I was with, who actually the way him and I met was crazy because I was on my way to Eust Island on the ferry. And probably an hour into the ride on the ferry, this guy walks up to me and he says, "Excuse me, is your name Michael?" And I said, "No, it's John." And he's just like, "Are you the guy going around Scotland right now lifting stones?" And I'm like, "How the hell do you know that?"
Yeah.
And now I know that he thought it was Michael because my name on Instagram was Michael. I kind of keep my name private, but and so he's like, "Yeah, I follow Jamie and I've been following you on Instagram." I'm like, "Well, freaking A, that's awesome. What are the chances of this?" So he's with two of his buddies, and I think two of them, I could be wrong, are from Eust Island. The three of them are training for an Ironman. So we spend the next hour of what's left of it.
He's done
Say
5 of
again?
them. Dale's done
Ironman?
5.
When I was a
That's
younger
just-
man. Yeah.
But you did it, and that's what matters. That's
That's wild.
Yeah, no, they're
wild.
ending up in the med tent, but yeah, no, it was my 18th birthday present was admission to Ironman Canada that I did when I was 18, 19, 20, 22, 24. So, full disclosure though, my mom and my dad beat me in all 5 of them. So,
Yeah, they're freaks.
yeah,
They've done like
that's right,
25 between the two of them.
yeah, that's right. I come from good stock, but
25, yeah, they've competed in worlds. Yeah, they're
quite clearly there was one year I was doing the Ironman. Sorry to sidetrack things, but I was running, which is a slow trot, to the finish line, which is like a 1 kilometer stretch. And David and my other brother Brett were watching. They said, "We knew it was you from like 500 meters away because I look like this Neanderthal running with like bow legs, kind of hulking this way." So clearly not built for the endurance sport.
Just
so that's
pure
why
grit.
yeah. Lifting stones is much more in my wheelhouse. So
Finished all 5 of them.
yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
That's what matters. Not the time, but the fact that you just pushed through it.
pure grit, man.
That's
Yep,
all part of it, right? Yeah, finding things that don't create grit but reveal grit. It's got to be there. So it's just testing yourself, which is why stone lifting for a lot of us is just such an like an enjoyable thing to do. Right? We got to see like what are we made of.
Absolutely. It's an obsession. I could say I'm obsessed. Yeah, I'm sure you guys feel the same.
But so you're heading over to
spade's a
Oost.
spade.
Is it Oost? Is the name of that? Is how you pronounce the island?
Maybe I
Yeah.
pronounce it used. I don't know if
Okay,
that's the
Uist,
correct way to say it.
Yeah, UIST, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yep. And from what I've been told, is those stones, aside from Clock Equality, are all more challenging than the stones in Ireland. So I'm confident that I have a good base going into Ireland. Still not overlooking it whatsoever. I go in, I make sure to stay humble because you never know what's going to peek its head around the corner.
Of course.
Yeah.
I show respect to all the stones, all the challenges, because, no one ever confident but not cocky,
Sure.
sort of thing.
You have to be confident.
Yeah. And I was the same way with Scotland. Everyone told me, after your Iceland trip, you're not going to have trouble with the Scotland ones. This was before they knew I was going to Eust Island.
Right.
And I was like, maybe,
Yeah.
but I'm going to treat every stone as a challenge.
Right? It's the next challenge. It's not going to be your hardest challenge or your easiest. It's the next challenge, right?
It is the next challenge because it's going to expend or expel energy regardless of if I do it easy or if it's difficult. Like I can say that out of the 36 stones, only 5 of them took me. I got every stone except for 5 of them on my first attempt. And you want to know the first stone that I failed on my first attempt was the Saddling the Mare.
Oh,
is that right?
Yeah.
One of the easiest stones to lift. I threw it to my shoulder, no problem.
Yeah.
But loading it to that plant, I didn't realize the height. It was very tall.
Right. That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
To touch back on your training, so like you put in, it's a high rep program that you maintain. Is that so that's partially to sort of create that work capacity to go on a stone tour in 8 days and lift 36 stones. But is some of that also too is like a form of preservation to make sure that you're not injuring yourself? Because what we've seen a lot too with people who are constantly pushing it 100% every single week in the gym is that they get injured and then it sets them back multiple weeks. They're eliminating that progress because they're just pushing for too much progress in a single session. Is that part of your mentality when you train?
Absolutely. I think injury prevention is a huge thing. So prehab, rehab, and I've never had an injury before. Thankfully, I think you hear people say, remember, it's about the reps, not the weight. And they're right, but it's also totally okay to push your limits.
Right.
So for me, yes, building that resistance to injury and just building the meat around the connective tissue, like the bones, tendons, ligaments, I think comes from my high rep training. Now, that was never my intentions in the beginning before going on stone tours. However, I feel like I've come to learn that that might be ideal for stone tours and just in general, because like I said, I've never hurt myself, and I'd obviously like to keep it that way. So yeah, I think it has a lot to do with that. I think it has. I think it's it more so carries over to the work capacity and my ability to not get fatigued while lifting stones for over a week straight. Because when I'm at the gym, so like I said, I do my good mornings. I'll do my heavy stuff at home because I have all the specialty bars.
Right.
And then I'll go to the gym where they have machines. So I have the Nordic Hyper at my house, and I love to do that. But I also like to do leg curls with just a machine, and I'll do 5 sets of 20 or 30 with that. I'll only use 100 pounds. I don't need to stack up the machine. I'll do 5 sets of 20 to 30 reps, which is a lot of reps,
Yes, it is.
just to get the blood to the tendons. And then I'll do 3 to 5 sets of 15 to 20 on the abductor, and then 3 to 5 sets of 15 to 20 on the adductor. I'll do belt squats on the belt squat machine. I love the hip thrust machine.
Okay.
Like where you put the bar and stuff on your hips and you do. I think that's great for the extension part of stone lifting.
Sure.
I totally forgot to mention that.
Yeah.
I don't record videos of it because I don't like to record myself at the gym.
Well,
I know it's
doing abductor and adductor and hip thrusters, maybe.
yeah.
Best videos to get.
Yeah.
Music, yeah.
Yeah.
You don't ever go into the gym and just do some 400-pound good mornings just to make every single man in there question their life choices, because that's a good way to pull rank if you're in the gym.
Yes, it could.
Most people's max deadlifts and your good morning.
I don't, because other than social media, Facebook and Instagram, I'm very private and reserved with what I do. Of course I love sharing my stuff on Instagram with friends and family.
One way to build community, right? That's the thing.
Yeah. However, I'm not one to where if I'm out at a bar or I'm at a get together that I'm quick to tell people that I do this. Unless people ask questions, I'll never talk about it. So with the gym, one, they don't have a spider bar there, so that's the big reason. It would be a little sketchy doing the heavy good mornings with a bar, only because it would slip.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, that's a safety thing for sure.
Yeah, but really, I'm there to train. I'm there to focus and better myself and prepare myself. Not so much. I don't care if anyone knows that I do this or that, or I'm strong with this. I'm there for me. It's a personal battle, a personal fight, I guess, if you want to call it. And every rep I do, whether it's a leg extension, a leg curl, or an adductor or a hip thrust, every rep I tell myself, this is going to carry over to my stones.
Yeah.
Right.
And this is why I'm going to be able to perform this,
You got the mental game down, it sounds like.
Yeah, and I think it's important. You have to have the mental game down.
Just my curiosity, actually, in hearing all your training stuff, is a big facet in stone lifting is central nervous system. Like, I don't even know the way to put it, but it's very taxing your central nervous system. And that's one thing that I'm noticing. I train with my stones in the garage all winter long. I got those stones down fairly well.
Robustness, your central nervous system.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm brain farting. I got up a night shift this morning. My brain isn't firing at 110%, but you're doing high rep work. You are absolutely right. From my understanding, you're training the muscles, you're training the tendons, the ligaments. You are bulletproofing your body and your spine, so to speak. But there's a lack of almost central nervous system stimulation. So how, when going into such heavy stone lifting tours, are you going to train that central nervous system? Is it something that just comes with the high rep training you find, or is that something like you discuss your adrenaline kicks in and you let that kind of take the lead?
I think it has a lot to do with all of that, honestly. I think adrenaline is a hell of a mechanism that the human body gives off.
Yeah, it is.
100%. I do also believe that my high rep training carries over to the work capacity and the ability to fight that central nervous system fatigue longer than other things. And not only have I personally felt that with my training, but I'm obsessed with doing research.
Sure.
Again, back to once the coffee hits the bloodstream, I'll look up random stuff on the internet, like
Coffee nerd.
you know. Yeah,
Everyone get it. There's a T-shirt.
That'd make a hell of a mug,
Yeah.
actually.
Coffee nerd. Caffeine nerd card.
really?
Yeah.
Really? Okay. I think it's a good idea. Yeah. But one thing I discovered through research, and granted, I guess you take what you read on Google with a grain of salt, but when you read it from numerous sources is a better word to put it, and you see the same thing, it catches your attention. And from what I've read, high rep training can actually have just as much, if not more, central nervous system. It can cause more central nervous system, or as much central nervous system fatigue as lighter, less reps, higher weight. With that said, I think everybody's different.
Yeah, it's different fatigue though, right? Like you could burn it out a different way. You could get the same amount of stimulation, but the stimulation you need for a max lift is going to be very different than the stimulation you have to tolerate for high reps, low weight, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's where the exercise selection for rep ranges comes in handy. So you will see me do sets of 10 with good mornings, but you'll also see me do a max rep with good mornings. And maybe not
mornings too, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
cool.
not 100%. I'll never go 100%. I always try to leave something in reserve. I'll go 85, 90 of what I think I can do. But I'll also do sets of 10, sets of 15, sets of 20 of good mornings. I don't post those because they're not as fun.
No, of course, yeah.
But I'm never going to go and do a max rep on leg extensions because that's useless.
Sure.
So,
it's completely useless, yeah.
Yeah. That's more so to get the blood in my patella tendons, my ACL, my meniscus, and really just get the blood in there and injury prevention. So after I do my lower reps with good mornings, then I'll always go to legs where I do sets of 10 plus with the Bulgarian split squats or the lunges. And that's another thing. I won't go below 10 reps for lunges either. I can, but I won't.
Yeah.
And so the only exercise I really do for less than 10 reps would be the good mornings. That, I believe, builds that max strength for lifting stones. Whereas all the bodybuilding stuff of the high reps, high sets, all the volume, I think that carries over to the work capacity required to go lift many stones on a stone tour. And again, that's not the case for everyone. Everyone's body's different. Age plays a role. Genetics play a role. Height and weight, nutrition, everything plays a role. That's personally what works for me. And you know what? Although it works for me, I could sit here and tell you there might be something better that would work for me, and I just haven't yet discovered it.
Yeah.
However, I haven't tried to discover it because I guess I just continue doing what works. But
it makes perfect sense, man. The best program routine is the one you're going to follow and that you enjoy doing, right? That's
you see a return from as well, right?
For sure,
like,
yeah.
Did you sort of lean into the Bulgarian split squats, the good mornings, that kind of stuff, because it helped to shore up a deficiency that you saw with your own stone lifting, or did you just feel like this was a great base that anyone could use to work from?
Or do you just hate yourself because nobody likes Bulgarian split squats?
Or
You hit it right there. I despise myself, and I am a glutton for
I'm going to
punishment.
punish myself.
that's right. It all goes
I
back
would-
to that breakup when you were 18 years old. You're still punishing yourself.
If only she could see me now.
Yeah, that's right. I wake up in the morning, I drink
New
coffee,
ex-girlfriend.
I watch countercut videos, and I do 400-pound good mornings.
That's the secret to success right there. I would say, in regards to your question, when I started doing good mornings, I don't want to call myself ignorant, but I would say I was, at the time, ignorant to the fact of what that was going to eventually lead me to. Does that make sense?
Yes, for
Yep.
sure.
I never had any intentions on going and traveling the world and lifting historic stones. I never had intentions on lifting any natural stones in the area I live in.
Yeah,
I was doing it to increase my strength on Atlas stones.
yeah.
I was doing that and glute ham raises, that's another exercise, glute ham raises. Or Nordic curls if you're able to progress from the glute ham raises to Nordics, like regular Nordics, those are great. But
The progress is
yeah,
incentive, eh? Like you saw the progress. That was the incentive to keep on doing more and more.
absolutely, yes. And once you see the progress and you realize, okay, the progress shows it's working, why the hell am I going to stop?
Mm-hmm.
So you keep doing what works. Why?
Good, more is better. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, don't reinvent the wheel, kind of thing. But like I said, that worked for me. It might not work for anyone else. And also, as I said, the good mornings almost happened by accident.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing it to increase my Atlas stone because at the time I started doing them, I was 24 years old. And each year I gained knowledge. I learned my body better. So obviously I knew less than I do now. And at the time, that made the most sense to me. Same movement, same range of motion. So it should carry over.
Yeah. There's
And I noticed that
a
it did.
mobility aspect in that too, right? So it's strength and mobility in equal parts, or it's a low back mobility as well, which as I'm getting older, more and more, like I focus on, there's a strength component to this, but there's a mobility component as well. I think the mobility component speaks more so to the longevity than the strength component. The strength is important for your, immediate accomplishments and achievements. How big of a stone can you lift? But for how long can I do this? You need to focus as well on the mobility component as well. And so part of this mobility routine that I'm doing now, which has been great, is good mornings as well. So
Oh yeah, definitely. I think the good mornings are great, and like you said, the mobility is very important as we get older. But I think at any age, honestly, mobility is key. Being able to get yourself in awkward positions, having that joint mobility, and just being able to keep those joints kind of like a car, keeping everything lubricated with the oil or whatever. So many things play a role, and that's what's great about it.
For sure.
you're a bit of a lone wolf in all of this. Where you're from, right? You're sort of the only person in the community who's really passionate about stone lifting. What does it mean to you to be able to sort of travel across the ocean and meet people in this community and develop the sort of, I'd imagine, sort of brotherhoods and relationships that you have been able to do with like the likes of Jamie Gorian, where you just in a couple of days, these endeavors of strength help create such a strong connection?
It means the world, honestly. And I say that, and that's coming from a person who is a complete introvert.
Yeah.
I consider myself very shy. I don't like to go out too often. When I do, I'm the sort of person that kind of just sits in the back, in the corner, my back's to the wall, and kind of just observing. I don't tend to interact with people. However, meeting people on these tours was amazing. And Jamie was planned. I met other people by accident.
Right.
Hence,
Yeah.
Callum on the ferry over to Eust.
Yeah.
I ran into another guy at Castle Menzies. I forgot to tell you about. He was in a car. He must have been driving in front of me for a half hour, and I had no idea. But I pull into Castle Menzies, and they take the same turn in there. I'm thinking it's the owner of Castle Menzies, but next thing you know, this guy gets out of his car in his kilt. I get out of my car in my kilt.
One of us.
Yeah.
One of us.
Yeah.
One of us. Yeah.
Yes, it was great. It was that was. I'll tell that story when I'm 80 years old. I mean,
That's what it's about, though, right?
Same.
Like, this is the whole part of like, there's the history that you're going to experience, and in doing so, you're also propagating history for the future. We'll tell our grandkids about the stones we lifted and the relationships that we made and the experiences we had, right? Like, that's how this becomes a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy, where the history establishes the baseline from which we can build experience, and that becomes the history of the future. So it's so cool.
absolutely that makes it everything.
Yeah.
I can't tell those stories if I'm lifting stones over in my local river, unless somebody happens to walk by and asks me about it and they get interested. However,
Hey, what are you
stories
doing
like
down
that.
there?
We've had that.
Well, let me tell you. Yeah, let me tell you. Well,
If the cops called on you or something like that, I always worry about that. That's why I try not to
burying
do
someone.
it in public. Like, there's some guy doing some weird activities
That's
over
right.
here. I think you need
Karen, making a stone Karen. Yeah,
to stone carrot. I like that.
yeah.
Stone Karen would
But-
complain about everything.
Oh, I mean, it's CAIRN is like a burrow. That stone Karen is something very different. Yeah. We should tell people no tacky on historical stones.
Yes.
That's
no
my kind of Karen.
shit.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome, man. Yeah, no, so what can we look forward to for the next couple of months? Obviously, your past month, you lifted 36 historical stones. In the next month or so, well, almost a month today, you're going to be heading to Ireland. How many stones? How many days? What's the plan?
I have. So originally, I believe I had a total of 30 or 31 stones.
Wow.
I've had to take 2 out because of some of the Dripsy stone. I can't go because of the landlord and insurance, and the Letrium graveyard stones, I believe, are on or near military base, so I can't go to those. So 27 or 28 stones I have on that tour. That's including the Copper Coast stones, which David made. And
Yeah.
those stones are important to him, so
Yeah, yeah.
they're going to be
It
important to
should
me.
be important to all of us.
That's
yeah.
future history as well. And that
Absolutely.
location looks amazing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It does.
Are you going to
For
meet
sure.
him on the trip?
Yes.
Awesome.
So I will be meeting David. I'll be there for 8 days. I think 8 days. Yeah. I'll meet him on the 4th day. We're gonna lift on Inishmore, and then we're gonna come back.
That's so sweet.
It's
Don't
gonna be
forget,
great.
hold it to chest and kiss it 3 times.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been telling myself that too.
Yeah.
And that
We're the
Yeah.
finest of little
Yeah.
yeah. Just like
And give David a smooch in the cheek for us, please.
3 for the
I
stone and 1 for
absolutely
Dave.
will. Yeah, so we got that, and then right after that we go to Tim Martin, Clara Galway, and Mitch Litton Plint. No, that might be the day after. So I'm lifting with him on the 8th of June and the 9th.
Awesome.
And I know for 1, possibly 2 of those days, he's got film crews coming and
Oh, man, right on.
local audience. And he's sponsoring a drinking night, which I'm really looking forward to.
Hey-o.
Yeah.
And boss, right?
Yeah.
You can lift stones.
That's sweet.
You can lift stones in Ireland, but can you drink in Ireland? There it is.
That's the real test. It's no one cares about the stone.
Get good morning
Keep
rating
up.
for that one.
There's no hip thrust will get you to that.
Maybe.
Absolutely.
That's different.
Maybe. Yeah, different.
It's a little different.
So, Yeah, I'll be with him for at least 2 of the days.
Awesome.
On my first 2 days, I'm meeting with other individuals who've actually reached out to me and want to meet out for a couple lifts. So
Awesome, man.
I don't know his full name, but 90 Kilo Dan on Instagram is going to meet me on day 1 for Flag of Den. And then I also have Lagenstone of Clofad, Clock Desort, and the Scalp Stone that day.
Yeah.
And the day after that, I'll be meeting with Tiernan Canny.
Yeah.
And we're going to be doing the Giant Stone Clefundra.
Yeah, Clog
Awesome,
he's a super strong.
Clefundra, yeah.
That stone is so cool. That's the one where you look at that and go, maybe giants did exist. Just like the story of there being the giants' fingerprints in the stone. You look at the stone; it was a giant throwing stone. There looks to be fingerprints in the stone. I mean,
So cool.
it's that, and that location looks incredible. That was the one when David first rediscovered it, captured my imagination. Like he just showed there's a cloud tundra, there's this beautiful old churchyard, and everything. Like it's picturesque.
Yeah, you look at it in videos, and like you said, you're like, all right, that's manageable. But once you get to these stones in person, it's a totally different
Yeah,
Yeah.
fair
thing.
enough.
And you're like, oh shit, I can't even get my hands around it type of thing. What the hell do I do? But you figure it out, you
You'll
make
be
it
just
happen.
fine.
You'll be just fine, man.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this trip. Scotland ended up being what I fully anticipate Ireland to be. Scotland, I knew was going to be fun. I never imagined it becoming what it became, with meeting all the people and just hearing the stories and it just being that experience. And I fully anticipate Ireland to be the exact same, and
I would imagine so.
No doubt it
I
will.
lose sleep over it.
Yeah, well, you're by the end of this summer, you're probably going to be one of, if not the most experienced natural historical stone lifters out there.
Travel, lift stones, repeat.
Too awesome,
Name
man.
of the
Well,
game.
thank you very much, John, for coming on. It's been a pleasure talking to you, man, and I'm very excited to follow your journeys.
Yeah, we can't wait to see what you do in the next month, let alone the next couple of years, man. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you guys for having me. It's been a blast.
All right.
Cheers.
All right, man.